Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 1 of the 1, 2, 3 Wrestling Podcast. My name is Keith. I am joined by my friend Adam today. It is going to be our pleasure to have regular chats with each other that hopefully you'll come and check out, where we will be discussing the fine art of wrestling. Of course, we understand that wrestling is scripted, but we also understand that this is a mega business. It has been entertaining fans for decades, and we're excited to talk about it. Adam, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Keith?
Not too bad, not too bad at all. Now, first of all, before we get started, I'm here in Canada, over on the East Coast, well, the East Central, I suppose, Eastern time zone here in Ottawa. You're in California. So,
Northern California.
Yeah. So, first of all, do you want to tell the good people how we met?
Okay, let's take it back to 2015, WrestleMania 31, Levi Stadium.
Yeah.
Fan access. We were in line. We just discussed this. We were in line for a Bella Twins signing. So they're obviously on a time crunch, in and out, Mania busy week. We don't get the Bella Twins.
No,
we
we
get
don't.
we get Fandango instead. And nothing wrong with Fandango. Was happy to meet him. I wish he was just as happy to meet me as I was him.
Yeah.
And that was in 2015. I think that's the cool thing about wrestling, meeting people from across the world. And my dad and I always say this. It's like wrestling is the only thing where you can get a big group of people and they all speak the same language of wrestling. And that's how you and I met. And it is now 7 years later, and here we are.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And for those people who don't know, fan access is basically like the Comic-Con, if you will, of WrestleMania weekend. There's like lots of different, booths set up. You can go and get pictures, autographs, and that sort of thing. And again, as Adam said, here we are standing in line to meet Nikki and Brie Bella. And then just as we got to the front of the line, they leave, and then Fandango comes in. We were able to take a couple of quick selfies with them, but it is what it is. So over the course of our time here, which we're looking forward to doing this regularly and often, is we will be talking about lots of things. WWE, AEW, of course, who is hot on the heels of WWE and their exciting product. But with WrestleMania so close, we're going to focus our first few episodes on WWE and WrestleMania. Before we get to that, though, we had some breaking news today that we need to talk about. Triple H, of course, Paul Levesque, a huge figure in WWE, went through some medical issues over the last few months, and as such announced his retirement from in-ring competition. Of course, he's married to Stephanie McMahon, which of course makes him the son-in-law of Vince. I don't see him stepping away from the company. That wasn't announced, but in terms of stepping away from in-ring competition. And this is a sad thing, because this is a guy who, you typically look at as, extremely healthy and what have you, but had some major complications from pneumonia, and as a result has decided that because of his medical condition, he's no longer going to be competing in the ring. How did you feel, Adam, when you heard about that news today?
I mean, I think you kind of saw it coming. I mean, I think before this was announced that you kind of got a hint that he wasn't going to come back to in-ring competition.
Mm-hmm.
For him, I know he kept everything going on with him really private. He was very silent. When asked Stephanie McMahon, she would just say he's doing okay, as per the interview on ESPN with Stephen A. Smith. And so the fact that he's not going to be doing it in ring anymore didn't really shock me. It's just, I think what shocked me the most was how close he was to losing his life. And like you said, here's a guy who is jacked as can be. And, in past documentaries, his diet is like, he doesn't eat food for taste. He eats food for fuel. It's like, this guy is so well in shape, and, out of nowhere, this happens. And it was tough. I mean, Triple H, I've seen many of his returns. I've been able to see two of his returns, surprise returns at a Monday Night Raw. sitting front row, and he is like right there, and he's like spitting all over the crowd. I'm like, dude, I'm like, and then I was pumped, and then to see him defeated the way he was in that interview was it took me back a little bit. It's like these guys are the guys we grew up, idolizing or just like that's my guy,
Yeah.
and my guy's done. But he
Yeah.
said he's gonna step away from the ring, but he'll be there backstage, prepping the new guys with NXT or not even NXT, the performance centers or what have you. Or he's not gonna be gone. He'll just be behind the scenes.
100%. And again, I gotta say, I think he's probably easily one of the top 5 heels that we've seen in wrestling.
And let's not forget the top 5 like face with DX.
Yeah, phenomenal character. And as you said, I mean, I think it's bittersweet because it isn't like him announcing a retirement match or him going out on his own terms like others have. It's basically him being forced into a position to do so. But at the end of the day, he still has his health, and that's the most important thing. So
Absolutely.
wishing him all of the best. Now, my friend, switching gears, we are getting ready for WrestleMania next week. We will do a full
Woo.
WrestleMania preview next week. We're going to get into whether or not we really think it needs to be 2 nights. But before we do that, that'll be next week. But for today, let's go back in time and let's talk about some of our favorite WrestleMania matches. Now, we are each coming to the table today with our top 5 WrestleMania matches of all time. And we're not going to do this in an order in terms of ranking them, but in terms of like from the earliest one up until the most present one, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Okay?
And you saw mine already getting
Yeah.
this together, and I caught a glimpse of yours, and I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
So I'm excited to do this. I think this is going to be great. So we're going to start off with yours, and I'm gonna put the image on the screen and just tell us why this is one of your favorites.
cool. The mega powers explode. WrestleMania 5. So WrestleMania 5, I think that's one of my earliest memories of wrestling, and obviously Hulk Hogan being Hulk Hogan, and I'm a little kid and I'm looking up to the guy that's telling me to say my prayers, eat my vitamins. And I think like going back, being older, like the story that it took to get to this point, a year-long storyline that we don't see anymore. It's a 2-week, binger, and
Yeah.
the the climax at the very end. But um, you had a year-long storyline with Macho and Hulk, and at WrestleMania 4 at the end, where they kind of like give a glimpse of what's going to be going on for the next year. And um, that match, as a kid, that's what I remember. That's how I was introduced to wrestling. Was Hogan and Randy betraying Hogan, and Hogan rising to the top and claiming that belt back at WrestleMania 5, even though he had helped Macho to get the belt at WrestleMania 4. You know,
Yeah.
to me, that was wrestling personified back then. I loved it.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Very cool. And by the way, for anybody who's out there saying, "Oh my God, this is before my time," because you have people that do that. It's called the WWE Network. So feel free to subscribe to it, and you can go back and you can watch all these WrestleManias. But I know we live in a world where people are like, "Oh, that was before my time," and obviously we're getting into what is it, the 38th WrestleMania now, and you're
38.
talking about something that happened back in WrestleMania 5. So for anybody who's like, "How do I see it?" WWE Network. You might even luck out, and it might be on YouTube. But feel free to check that out.
Not on
Heading
YouTube. I checked.
I love it. All right. Heading to your next on your top 5 list.
WrestleMania 12. How did Vince say it? The boyhood dream has come true for Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Iron Man match, 60-minute Iron Man match. I remember I think I was in the 6th grade, and Shawn was my guy. I mean, Brett was my guy. Shawn was my guy. I was at the Royal Rumble. Shawn won to get the opportunity for this match. Um, he made that return from collapsing in the ring and coming back. I forgot what entrant in the Royal Rumble, taking it down, kicking Diesel in the face to win it.
Mhm.
I think about this match was the big entrance. Remember when he's going down the zip line all the way down into the crowd? I mean, you couldn't get any better than Shawn Michaels back then, and
Mr. WrestleMania.
absolutely. And I think as a kid too, I didn't appreciate the the actual wrestling in it. I think it was more like the drama. Like my guy finally took it down, and I was there. I was there at the seating of it to see him win the Rumble, finally win it at WrestleMania, and I think Shawn was the best. And then after the match, loses. He goes back into the locker room, and then he disappears.
Yeah.
And he goes to do. I think he was doing a show. What show is it? Lonesome Dove. Uh,
Yes.
Lonesome Dove, and he had in past interviews, it was revealed that he was working the boys where he wanted them to think that he was so mad that he took off and left, and it worked.
Yeah.
So everything, ever since in the match, it was just calculated and just entertaining.
Nice. All right, moving on.
Oh, I think this is the match that changed wrestling, going into the Attitude Era with Stone Cold and so do you remember, Keith, the iconic image with the blood dripping down through the teeth?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
take that and then let's bring that into today. Do you remember when Becky Lynch got hit by Nia Jax?
Yeah, sure
You
do.
remember
Broke her
her on
face.
broke her face. She went up to the crowd. She's bleeding. Did you not feel at that time where Becky Lynch had her Stone Cold Steve Austin moment? Because that's what I felt.
100%.
Dude, this match was great. I mean, I think Jim Ross even says before, like, if any wrestler who wanted to wrestle, watch this match, study the match. It was great. I rewatched it last night, getting ready for this, and you know, what a great double turn. And this began the end for Bret Hart. I mean, from here on out, it was downhill. You
No.
know, to the
No.
Montreal screw job.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. All right. Next up on the list.
When I think of this Mania, I think of Limp Bizkit and My Way. That dude,
Okay.
that video package, the best video package I think in wrestling history.
Now, what Adam's, of course, referring to is that WWE does such a great job with production value. And when you're leading up to the fight, they always have like a promotional video that plays that I love. That if you haven't been keeping up to date with what's going on, it kind of lets you know how these two men came together. So yeah, Limp Bizkit, they used the Limp Bizkit song for the promo package for Austin and Rock. But my friend, take it away.
This also was a turn in Steve Austin's career. I think some people criticize this match for not being as good as I thought it was. I thought it was great. I was, intrigued and to see Stone Cold finally like with Vince McMahon at the very end. It's like, no, but what are you doing?
Yeah.
It had me from the beginning to end. I thought they told a great story. I thought it was great. I know people
Mhm.
criticize it all the time. I don't know why, but this is definitely number 4 on my list.
Love it. Love it. And rounding out your top 5.
I mean, I think the picture says it all.
Yeah.
I think they coined it what icon versus icon,
Yeah.
and absolutely. I mean, this is only a match you could see now if you go to WWE 2K and put it in. You know what I mean?
So
And
true.
I think the thing that stands out most for this was the pop the crowd gave these guys for every little thing they did, from the pose downs to, like the cheap heat, cheap pop. I thought this match was great. I think the fans made this match great.
This was one of those interesting moments because this was at WrestleMania 18. It wasn't the main event of WrestleMania 18. Sorry,
Right.
Jericho and Triple H, but I mean this was one of those things where Hulk Hogan was supposed to be the bad guy, The Rock was supposed to be the good guy, but the way the crowd in Toronto was responding was the complete opposite, and it was just one of those once in a lifetime type matches because. Again, at the time, we've got the NWO coming back into WWE, and it was like this huge thing. But again, that's a solid top 5.
Keith, you're
So
in Canada. How far away was this from you?
so Toronto's about a 4-hour drive
Okay.
from where I am, so not far at all. And again, I think the crowd there was something like 60,000. you know,
Might have
and
even been more, yeah.
yeah, it might have been a bit more, but it was fantastic. It was a great WrestleMania. I've had the chance to go to a couple of WrestleManias. This was one of them, and it was
Oh, I was
just
just gonna ask, did you
incredible.
go?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I was
no.
able to get some tickets for it, and went with a friend of mine, Matt, who you know as well, and it was a great time. So yeah, thank you for sharing your five. Let me go through mine, and we do have a similar one here. Not this one. My first one. The image is a little blurry because this is what I found off the internet for WrestleMania 3, Steamboat Savage. Again, I think this is probably one of the greatest matches of all time, and not just WrestleMania matches. One of the things that I loved about this is, again, we talk about the importance of a story. We've got the whole story of Randy Savage crushing the larynx of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, and Steamboat's doing everything in his power to try to get his hands on him. They have this phenomenal technical matchup, which just ends in the small package. And of course, WrestleMania 3, everyone will remember it for being Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. But when you're talking about epic matches, you have to be talking about Steamboat Savage. This was just such a phenomenal match, and it was one of those, you know, things where you're seeing like the culmination of a story, of a wrestling storyline gets told at WrestleMania, and that's what we had with these
They
two
say
gentlemen.
some people say this is the greatest match of all time.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Moving on, I agree with you. WrestleMania 13. Going into this match, of course, Brett was the babyface, Stone Cold was the bad guy. By the time this night ended, Stone Cold's limping out of the ring to a standing ovation from the crowd. People completely forget the fact that if you see that bulky arm there in the corner, that's Ken Shamrock. He was the special referee. Nobody ever talks about Ken Shamrock because nobody cared. The image was just so incredible. You've got Stone Cold, who was busted open, who was in the sharpshooter, a move that everybody had submitted to, and he refused to quit. He ended up losing the match. Let's talk about that. And by losing the match, ended up having this phenomenal moment. Everyone talks about the King of the Ring, the 316. This was the moment, I think, that really solidified Stone Cold Steve Austin as the next big superstar in the WWE. Moving on to WrestleMania 20. This is the one that nobody likes to talk about. When you go back and you look at, you know, history of WWE, this is the thing that they kind of want to, like, you know, erase everything that happened with Chris Benoit. And I get it. It's not necessarily a great look for the company. I'm not talking about Chris Benoit as a person. I'm talking about this match. In this match, you had a guy in Chris Benoit who had paid his dues, who had, jumped through every you know, obstacle. He'd leapt through every single hurdle, and he got into this stage where he's in the main event at WrestleMania. They put him against Triple H. They put him against Shawn Michaels. We kind of expected that he might get a screw job. It's in Madison Square Garden. He ends up winning by tapping out Triple H. His best friend in real life, Eddie Guerrero, comes into the ring. They celebrate together. These are like sincere tears. We're kind of like, I think there's something in my eye as we're watching this. I
Or
thought
the
it was just,
onions.
yeah, who's cutting onions here?
Who's cutting onions?
So I know talking about Chris Benoit is taboo, but again, legit, I thought this was one of the best WrestleMania matches. I remember watching this, and just when I'm turning off the pay-per-view, I'm like, you know what? I feel like I've watched a great show tonight. So that's my third. My fourth, we got to talk end of an era. The Undertaker, you can't talk about WrestleMania without talking about Undertaker. The streak was phenomenal, but we had 4 matches in a row where he fought Shawn Michaels twice, second time retiring him, and then he had the 2 matches with Triple H, and this image is taken from the second. This is the 3rd time he actually fought Triple H at WrestleMania. One of the things that was so impressive about this is that all 3 gentlemen on the screen played a major part in this. So of course you've got the 2 combatants in Triple H and the Undertaker, but you also got the raw emotion of the special referee in Shawn Michaels, where he's so conflicted in terms of how he's handling this match. Like, he's got his best friend in Triple H, he's got somebody who he respects in the Undertaker. It was one of those matches where, again, similar to some of the other ones that we talked about, like Rock Hogan, what have you, you're seeing something that is once in a lifetime, and you're seeing something that's special. And the fact that they had this kind of curtain call moment, if you will, on the stage, which they say wasn't planned, I just thought was a beautiful moment. And rounding out my top 5. So you could call this a bit of recency bias, because, you know, we're talking about all these WrestleManias, and then we kind of go from, like, I think the last one was like WrestleMania 28, and then we jump all the way to WrestleMania 37. This match for me was fantastic. So last year, I was getting to the point where I wasn't watching a ton of wrestling. So first of all, the video package that went with this match was just absolutely phenomenal. We have the veteran in Sasha Banks, who's kind of like running the show. We've got the upstart who's ridiculously talented in Bianca Belair. And this was part of the whole 2-night WrestleMania. This was night one. What was impressive about this was it was the first time we had 2 Black women in the main event of a WrestleMania. Second of all, with all due respect to Charlotte Flair, Becky Lynch, and Ronda Rousey, who put on a decent match, this was really epic for the women's division. The triple threat match that I just mentioned, that of course was the main event of a previous WrestleMania. The challenge with it was at the end of a night that was like 8 hours long. We all just wanted to go to bed. A WrestleMania should never be 8 hours long. So, and you could tell the ladies were just kind of like, okay, let's just wrap this up. Not the case with this match. This match told a great story. It was a wonderful passing of the torch. Again, there might be a little recency bias, but if I was looking back at my favorite matches of 2021, this was actually my favorite WWE match. I absolutely loved it. Not favorite female match, favorite match overall. So this one gets my my pick for rounding out my top 5 WrestleMania matches. And there we have it.
Dude, that was the year they finally let people back into arenas, right?
Yeah, I believe it was I want to say it was in Tampa last year.
Okay.
So,
did they do back to back?
They
Tampa?
did.
Okay.
They did, to my knowledge. Yeah. So, and now they're in Texas this year, and then down the road from you, I guess, next year. So,
oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
So Las Vegas next year and Texas this year. This is their second time in Texas.
Yeah.
I think the first time they drew 101,000.
Okay.
I think they put like extra bleachers inside there somewhere. God knows, but
I'm interested to see if this year's WrestleMania sells out. I don't know, because it's the 2 nights, right? And they've already said what's on what night, so it's kind of
you could choose.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have done that. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. We're going to wrap up for tonight. We are going to come back next week. We're going to do a full-on preview of WrestleMania. We'll talk about the matches that we're looking forward to. We're going to be talking about maybe some of the things that we might not be looking forward to. I don't know. We're going to talk about the Hall of Fame. And when you're talking about the Hall of Fame, it's all about the induction of the Undertaker. So we'll be talking about that as well.
Okay? And who's inducting the Undertaker?
And who is inducting the Undertaker, which is a big deal as well. Adam, did you have fun tonight?
Oh, dude, this was like something I've been looking forward to for a really long time. I've always wanted to do this. I'm glad. I mean, 5 years ago, who would have known?
Yeah. I'm telling you. You know what the wonderful thing is that so Adam and I are part of a wrestling group chat. We don't get to see each other physically that often. Adam, get used to this face. You're going to be seeing it on a regular basis.
He used to have 2 bald heads.
I love it. I love it.
Right on, brother.
Head and Shoulders won't sponsor this, but we'll find somebody. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Adam. I am Keith. Thank you so much for checking this out. Again, please come back next week. We are going to be talking WrestleMania 38. I don't know if you've heard about this, Adam. It's going to be the most stupendous 2-night event. So we're going to be breaking it down pillar to post. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for checking out episode 1 of the 1, 2, 3 Wrestling Podcast. Thanks so much, everybody, and take care.
Have a good night.